am driving right now. This is the first time I've ever done a Facebook Live. YouTube. This is the first time I've ever done a YouTube Live from my car, and I picked a really bumpy road to put on. So, would it look nicer if I let the sunlight in a little bit? That's nicer, isn't it? So, I'm going to give you an example lease option deal. I just did a video a minute ago talking about the differences between wholesaling and lease options. Let me know if you guys can hear me, would you? Let me know if you can hear me by typing something in chat. I've been doing a lot of Facebook Lives. I'm going to be doing more YouTube Lives because I like YouTube. If you want to learn how to do a lease option deal or a wholesaling deal, do you go to Facebook and do a search for how to do lease option? No. You go to YouTube or Google. So I'm going to do more videos here teaching you how to do this cool stuff, right? So let me give you one example of a lease option deal that does not have enough equity. This is a deal that I don't want to stay in the middle of, all right? Doesn't have enough equity, there's no cash flow. Maybe it's even a little upside down. Let me give you an example. It's a seller that's been trying to sell it for sale by owner on Zillow, and they're not getting many bites on it. And hey guys, let me know if you can hear me, and let me know if the video is too bumpy. Because if it's too bumpy, there's nothing I can do. But if it's not loud enough, I can talk louder maybe. So anyway, it's a seller had it for sale by owner on Zillow. We contacted the realtor. They sell it with the realtor. 6 months later, no bites. Then the listing expires. Okay? Good, you guys can hear me. All right, thank you. Listing expires because I've been following up with the seller, and I do that inside of my REI Simple CRM, which follows up with everybody. This video's horrible, bouncing around everywhere. Anyway, because I'm following up and I send the seller an offer, even though they said no, they call me up and said, you know what, we tried to sell it, we can't. We don't want to rent it, we don't want to be long distance landlords, we cannot make another mortgage payment. And this is happening today, even today, in this hot, competitive, difficult market. By the way, it is slowing down, so these deals are getting easier and easier to do. All the wholesalers out there are getting nervous because they're a one-trick pony. They don't know how to do creative deals. So, I tell the seller, let's do a lease option, but there's not enough equity in the deal. So let's say they owe $150, and let's say the house is worth $150 and they owe $140. So there's only quote-unquote $10,000 in equity, but really that's going to be gone. If they were to list it and sell it with a realtor, they would have to come to closing with money, right? So it's the house is worth $150, they owe $140. And I say, well, you know, what if I could get you $150? What if I could get you $150? Would you be willing to lease it for a year and then sell it? You say, yes, that sounds great, let's do it. I say, all right, well, listen, I'm not going to be able to stay in the middle because there's not enough cash flow. And let's say their mortgage payments are $1,100 a month, and it rents for $1,100 a month, okay? There's no cash flow. I say, well, I might be able to get you $150 if you're willing to lease it for a year and then sell it. And they say, yeah, let's do it. I say, okay, great, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a lease option contract. You're going to sign it, send it back to me. I'm going to turn around, and I'm going to market that contract and find a good tenant buyer. If I find one, I'm going to, there's more paperwork, but I'm going to sell my contract to that tenant buyer for a fee. This doesn't cost you anything. I get paid from the tenant buyer. Is that cool? Is that fair? They say yes. I say also, a couple things that you should know. Number one, my contract is non-exclusive. So if you sell that house before I do a lease option on it, you can cancel my contract. You don't owe me anything. Number one. Number two, I get paid from the buyer. It doesn't cost you anything. I get paid from the buyer if and when I sell my contract to them, okay? And number three, you get to get the final approval on the tenant buyer that I put in this house, because I have an assignment agreement, and the seller, the tenant buyer, and me, we all three signed that assignment agreement. That's a great deal, right? What does the seller have to lose? It's not exclusive. They can still advertise it on their own. I don't have to make any more. and they get full price. They don't have to pay any realtor commission. All right, so I give the seller on rent for 2 years. All right, $150,000. This is my A to B contract. $150,000 A to B for 2 years, $1,100 a month in rent. I want to make a $5,000 assignment fee on this deal. So what do? I'm going to bump the price up from $150 to $155. And I'm going to advertise that contract. I'm going to advertise the contract for that lease option and find a tenant buyer. How do I find a tenant buyer? Bandit signs, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Zillow, Buyers List, and REI Simple, all that good stuff. All right. I find a tenant buyer. I advertise that contract for $5,000, and I assign. When I find a good tenant buyer, I'm then going to create. It's where it gets a little technical here. I'm going to create a new lease option contract with the seller, a separate lease and a separate option. $1,100 a month in rent for 2 years, and an option agreement for $155,000. I'm then going to assign those two contracts to my new tenant buyer for a $5,000 assignment fee. And I have an escrow company that handles all the paperwork and stuff like that. That's it. I make money by assigning my lease option contract to a tenant buyer for a fee. You don't have to be licensed to do this. Although I am licensed, you don't have to have a license to do lease option deals. I recommend that you do, but you don't. One of the things that I also recommend, because this question comes up all the time, you might want to find a realtor to market the home for you. Find a realtor that can market the home for you if you're concerned about licensing issues and all that. You got to outsource that anyway. Why not outsource it to a realtor? That's one type of lease option deal. That's a lease option assignment or a wholesaling lease option deal, right? By the way, if you want to learn how to do wholesaling lease options, I wrote a book, and you can get it for free. Just pay shipping and handling. Go to WLObook.com, WLObook.com, all right? Some of you are wondering what kind of car I drive. It's not a Bentley. It's not a Maserati. It's not a Porsche. It's not a flashy, fancy car. It's a Nissan Maxima, and I own it free and clear, and I'm proud to drive this thing. Is that cool or what? Yes. All right, so there's a second type of lease option deal, and that's called a sandwich lease option deal. Those are the big kahunas. Those are the deals you're going to make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on. On a lease option assignment, you make $5 to $10,000, maybe $3,000. That'll take you on a nice date. But on a sandwich lease option, there's 3 profit centers in a sandwich lease option: cash now, cash flow, and cash later. Okay? Cash now is the money you get up front from the tenant buyer when they move in. Usually it's 3%. It's non-refundable if they don't buy the house. Then you also get cash flow. Normally you get about $300 to $400 a month in cash flow. Good questions, guys. I'll get to them later. And then you also get profit on the back end. That's the difference between what you buy it from the seller on the A to B and what you sell it to the tenant buyer on the B to C. So you got the A to B and the B to C. And I'm staying in the middle. Okay? I'm staying in the middle. So if this is the same example, let's say the house is worth $150 and the seller owes $130. So there's some equity. It rents for $1,100 a month, but their mortgage payments are $800 a month. So how much cash flow is there? $300 a month, right? So I tell the seller, all right, I'll buy it from you on a lease option. By the way, I'm staying in the middle, so I'm going to be the tenant buyer the whole time. I'm going to take care of the vacancies, the maintenance, the management, the repairs, everything. I'm going to take care of it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about vacancies. You don't have to worry about property management. By the way, if your property manager, if you have a property manager or a realtor and the house is vacant, is your property manager going to make the payments for you? If the faucet leaks, are they going to fix the faucet and pay for it? No. Oh, they won't. Right. I will. There's my son. Okay. Oh, but I will, right? That's a sandwich lease option. I'm going to stay in the middle. It's an investment property. So, I'm late. Sorry. Come on, get in. There's my son. He's getting in. He's going to put the cello in the car. All right, so it's worth $140. I'm going to get it under a lease option contract for $130. It rents for $1,100 a month. I'm going to get it under contract to pay the tenant, the seller, $800 a month. So how much equity is there? There's $20,000 in equity and $300 a month in cash flow. Okay. So I'm going to give the seller an A to B contract. I'm going to I'll get an option to buy it for $130,000 and $800 a month for 5 years. Then I'm going to put a tenant buyer in the house, and I'm going to advertise that property as a lease option. I'm going to put a tenant buyer. I'm staying in the middle. I'm going to advertise that property for maybe $160,000. They can buy it in 2 years. Hey, dang, light video. Sorry, I was late. So I'm going to advertise that property for $160,000. And how much am I going to advertise it for in rent? $1,100, because that's the market rents. So just using round math here, help me out here. $300 a month, a year, it's $3,600 a year in cash flow, right? Times, let's say it takes the tenant buyer 3 years to buy the house. 3,600 times 2, that's 7,200 plus another 3,600. That's about $10,800, isn't it? $10,000 in cash flow over the 3 years, right? And what am I buying it for? I'm buying it for $130,000, and I'm selling it for $160,000. How much back end profit do I have? 30 grand. So what's 30 grand plus 10 grand? 800, something like that. $40,000. Is that right? $40,000. You can go on a really nice date for $40,000. In fact, here's the cool thing about sandwich lease options, real quick. On that simple deal that I just described, very simple deal, right? Is a wholesaler going to be able to buy that 150 house for 130? No, they're throwing that lead away. There's nothing they can do with it. But an investor who understands lease options, they can get that property under contract, do the lease option on it. If you just did one lease option deal a month, pay attention to the math here. This is really amazing. One lease option deal a month, a typical average deal like I just explained there. In 3 years, you would have over $1 million in equity and over $10,000 a month in monthly cash flow, without the typical landlord headaches and nightmares and management, all of that stuff, right? And these are nicer homes. These aren't junky homes in the hood. These are nicer properties, and you get much better tenants. These are newer homes that don't need as much maintenance and repairs, and the tenant buyers take care of the maintenance and repairs. I love lease options. Why? Because I make way more money with them. Like, if you're doing a wholesaling, you're making 20 offers to get one deal, all right? If you also can do lease options, you can get 3 deals out of those 20 offers. That's what, 3 times the amount of money, profit, whatever. So anyway, you're going to do more deals, you're going to make more money if you add in lease options to your arsenal. Does that make sense? I hope so. I hope that makes sense, guys. If you want a book that I talk about this and I teach more about simple lease options, go to WLObook.com, WLObook.com. I also have a class, a webinar where I'm teaching this stuff. If you go to SLOclass.com, SLO class for simple lease options class.com, you can watch the webinar I did about that and talk about it, okay? I'm going to go see here if I can view the chat messages. There they are. Hey, Brutus, how you doing? Lenore, good afternoon. Trone, hey, cool, thanks. Oh, you can hear the wind noise. Sorry about that. It's my air conditioning. Hopefully this video is not that bad. Thank you, free RE wholesaler mentoring. I'm a legend. I don't know about that. My boys don't think so. Am I a legend? He shook his head and shrugged his shoulders. Who is your escrow company? Who is your attorney? Good question, Brutus. And I can't tell you that because it's in my course. If you want my course, I'd give you all that. But you can find an escrow company or an attorney that can help you. Cool. Brutus has got the book. Nice. What year Maxima? 2011. I paid 10 grand for it. Do I do subject twos? No. I don't like subject twos. On those 3 out of 20 deals, what is your marketing spend to get that? Great question. I do most of my marketing for free. I go to Craigslist and Zillow, and I find landlords and for sale by owners, and I send them text messages and emails and sometimes voicemails. And I spend maybe, for the VA to do it, $500, $600 a month. So my marketing is very, very low. What happens if the seller gets a lien during a lease option? What happens then? Well, if she gets a lien, or the seller gets a lien on the property, it gets paid at closing. Now, if it is a lien that's greater than, the price of the home, I don't know. It just depends. You got to talk to an attorney, talk to your title company, and ask them how to handle that. When I'm doing a sandwich lease option, I always record that option in the county records to cloud the title. I also have the seller sign a limited power of attorney for that house so I can force them to sell it. I cover all that in the course. Okay, that's it. I don't see any more questions. I got to go. I got to look at our map. We're going to Six Flags. Yay. Anyway, get my book, WLObook.com. That's for wholesaling lease options, WLObook.com. Or go to my webinar at SLOclass.com. SLOclass.com. That's simple lease options. SLOclass.com. Thank you, Matthew. Botanic, you have a question. What's your question, man? Can you do lease options on foreclosures? Craig is asking. No. Well, you can if you want to, but you have to buy the house. You have to get it current. And the idea with lease options is you're owning with you're controlling a property without owning it. So you don't want to buy the house. You just want to control it. David, I'm not sure. I'm sorry about that. You say you got my book, but not the extra thing that you bought. Send an email, please, to support@joemccall.com. Support@joemccall.com, and I will personally make sure that gets taken care of. I'm sorry about that. Okay, here's a question from Botanic. What exit clause should I have in my purchase and sale agreement if I don't find a buyer? Great question. There's a couple ways I do that. Number one, I tell the seller that I'm not making any payments until this certain date. And if I don't find a tenant buyer by that certain date, I can cancel my agreement. That's one thing I do. Yeah, that's it really, actually, because my initial contract says this contract will be, what's the word? There will be a subsequent, more formal lease and option agreement that we have to sign. Okay. And then, so that happens when I find the good tenant buyer. And if I don't find a tenant buyer, then I never fill out the more formal lease and purchase option agreement document. Does that make sense? Yeah, but I make it non-exclusive, so the seller can still sell the house. I'm never going to be accused of tying up the property and taking it off the market. All right, I got to go, guys. Appreciate you all. Have some fun. Wholesaling is different. You have an inspection contingency there. All right. Hey, it's been fun, guys. I'm going to do more YouTube live videos. I appreciate you all. Give me a thumbs up. Like this channel. Give me a thumbs up right now. I see 3. I got 3 likes already right there.